On the show in Wheelspin, we drive the new Honda Jazz. In Wheelspin, we also drive the soon-to-be-launched Fiat Abarth. And in Going in Style, we take a look at how the first cars were made.
Testing the new Honda Jazz today. If it looks familiar, that's because the basic shape remains the same. This body style is what Honda calls the cross-fade monoform design. It's more like a mini MPV, which is why it liberates so much space on the inside and is one of the key factors that makes the Jazz as flexible and versatile as it is. The front-end styling of the new Jazz is unmistakably Honda. It has this broad piano black section with the Honda logo sitting proud in the center, highlighted with this chrome trim. Honda claims the new Jazz is lighter and stronger than its predecessor. Since the original Jazz burst upon the scene in 2001, Honda has sold more than 5.5 million units in over 75 countries. The new Jazz, which goes on sale in India next month, will be the first and so far only diesel-powered version anywhere in the world, which speaks volumes of the Japanese manufacturer's commitment to the Indian market. The rear three-quarters is one of the more attractive angles of the new Honda Jazz. These hook-shaped tail lamps and this broad chrome grille lend it a lot of character. In fact, the styling of the rear is a little bit reminiscent of the largest CR-V SUV. The Honda Jazz will be the largest hatchback on sale in India. Indeed, it has the most spacious interior by far. Honda has increased the wheelbase by over an inch, while smarter packaging has ensured that up to 3 inches more of total cabin space is available to passengers. The interiors of the new Honda Jazz have been very thoughtfully and intelligently designed. There are lots of storage cubbies all around the cabin. You have storage space over here in the center console, along the center tunnel, in the doors, so you can really pack in a lot of stuff. However, I don't like the shiny piano black finish on the center console. It's a dust magnet. Also, the touchscreen system interface for operating the climate control is also not to my liking, because it's a little difficult to operate while you're driving. Remember the crossfade monoform design I was talking about earlier? Well, jargon aside, what it does is it serves to liberate acres of space on the inside of the new Jazz. The driving seat has been adjusted to my driving posture. Despite that, sitting in the back seat, you can see the amount of legroom available to me. My knees are literally inches away from the front seat back. The new Honda Jazz will be available with 3 powertrain variants. There's a diesel manual, which we're testing here. There's also a petrol manual and a petrol with a CVT gearbox. So I'm driving the new Jazz diesel just now. Honestly, it feels very nice to drive. The gears shift positively. The clutch weightage is spot on. In fact, I think other manufacturers can learn from Honda how to have a well-weighted and a positive clutch. The steering is nice. The suspension setup is on the softer side, but that's understandable given the kind of application and use this car will be put to. However, one big flaw is the amount of engine noise inside the cabin. This is a loud and boomy engine. So while it has good performance and it pulls really strongly through the gears, this engine noise is a little disconcerting. It's also going to be tiring on longer drives. Honda claims the new Jazz diesel will be the most fuel-efficient car in its class. The ARAI certified mileage figure is 27.3 kilometers per litre. The Jazz uses the familiar 1.5-litre i-DTEC diesel engine found under the bonnet of all Honda cars in India. It also uses the same 6-speed manual gearbox as found in the city sedan, but with a taller final drive ratio, which, along with its lower weight, helps the Jazz fuel efficiency. Honda claims the petrol manual will manage 18.7 kilometers per litre, while the petrol CVT will be even more fuel efficient with a figure of 19 kilometers per litre. all under ideal test conditions, of course. Earlier this morning we were driving the Jazz diesel. This, however, is the new Jazz petrol which we are going to be driving. This car is powered by a 1.2 litre petrol engine and has a 5-speed manual gearbox. This is the top of the line VX trim variant of the new Honda Jazz. It comes with Honda's magic seats and they really are magical. We are going to show you just what all you can do with these seats, which can be configured in multiple ways. They also fold flat into the floor to liberate a lot of room. However, bear in mind that these magic seats are only available on the top-end VX trim variant. The Jazz's USP are the magic seats. The rear seat can flip, tumble, fold and split in numerous configurations to allow you to carry just about anything from a washing machine to sleeping children and/or your pets. These magic seats are only available on the top-end VX grade, however, which is a little disappointing. For those of you who are looking for an automatic option, Honda offers the new Jazz with a CVT gearbox. You can actually drive this like a manual. You can change gears using these paddles on the steering wheel. You pull the left paddle to shift down and the right to shift up. The petrol Jazz, powered by a puny 1.2 litre petrol engine, feels quite underpowered, especially after you drive the diesel. Considering that it has just half the torque, it really struggles, especially when you have a fully loaded vehicle. The CVT gearbox is actually very easy to use in congested traffic conditions like we're driving through just now. But you can't get away from the fact that the engine feels underpowered. On the open stretches of road in Goa where we've been test driving this new Jazz, we found the car to be really wanting, especially when trying to overtake it. Performance and fuel efficiency are what Honda engines are known for. While both the i-DTEC petrol and i-DTEC diesel engine have been around for some time now, there's no getting away from the fact that the petrol Jazz feels underpowered, while refinement levels in the diesel are found wanting, especially when compared to the likes of the Hyundai Elite i20. But this is probably the best Honda can do, given the constraints of cost. And let's not forget government legislation, which penalizes cars with petrol engines bigger than 1.2 litres. The new Honda Jazz goes on sale on July 8th. It will be available in 7 colours and 4 trim variants, beginning from the base E trim, going up via the S, V and the top-of-the-line VX variant. So will the new Jazz be a bestseller for Honda? At this point in time, I cannot predict. Honda has not given us any clues as to what the pricing of the new Jazz will be. But suffice to say that we expect the base petrol version to start at a little over 5 lakh rupees, with the top-end diesel VX touching maybe 9.5 lakh rupees on the road in Delhi. That's going to be an expensive car. At that price point, it's a lot of money, but Honda is also offering a lot of car.
Fiat had been a pretty well-known brand in India, and many of you old-timers like me might have seen them in plenty, but may have also driven them or have learned to drive in them like me again. But then we haven't seen a lot of them in the last few years or so. But I'm told Fiat is on a resurgence mode, and they're going to launch a few cars in the next few months. And this is going to be one of them. If you think this is the Fiat 500, then you are going to be only partly right, because yes, this is the Fiat 500, but this is the juiced up version of the Fiat 500. This is coming from Fiat's racing arm, the Abarth. Hence, it will have more brake horsepower and of course look a little more prettier, because it will have an entire body kit to make it look more attractive to you. Fiat is not only going to launch this 500 in the Abarth garb, but there will be other cars as well, like the Punto as well as the Ventura, which will both now come with the Abarth dressings on it. And what that will do is to make them juicier and a whole lot more fun to drive. Fiat has been known for its cute small cars for many decades and gave the world cars like the Millicento and the Cinquecento. And the last, of course, was the new Fiat 500, which they launched in July of 2007. And the 500, with its compact design, made a nice fashion statement and went on to revive Fiat's fortunes in many markets. But in India, the car was imported as a completely built-up unit, which jacked up the prices by over 100%. And this ensured that you hardly saw any on the road here. But the fact remains that this is one of the most usable cars, especially for our overcrowded roads. This Fiat 500 here is a pretty little hatch any which way you look at it, and what I personally really like about this is the compact size, which will make it very easy for us to drive it in our overcrowded cities as well as to find a parking slot for it. And another thing that I really like about this is the fact that she handles really well. The Abarth 595 is basically the same car as the 500, but where it is different is that it has been routed through Fiat's racing arm, the Abarth. Hence the tag, as well as the cosmetic changes and an engine which produces more power. And both these things are sure to help the car endear itself to people who like cars and like driving even more. The engine here produces some 27 brake horsepower more, which is substantial to make a difference in a car which is this small and light, and it's mated to an automatic gearbox. The short wheelbase and direct steering gives the car a go-kart-like feel and makes it a car you can make disappear in a flash around a corner. And the track is where we are headed for now, after we had put the car through its paces through a Gymkhana course to get an idea about the handling. Another thing that I really like about this Abarth 595 here is what is under the bonnet here, the engine which produces more power, and that should be fun. Plus I am told that she has got a really nice neutral handling. So it's time for me to find a racetrack and grab my helmet. The Abarth might not be a monster of a car, it's just powered by a 1.4-litre petrol engine which belts out something very modest, around 160 brake horsepower. But the fact is that what you can do with it is play a race car driver on the weekends, because the feeling that you get while you corner hard is that of a go-kart. It really goes and slides through the corners very, very well and holds the line extremely well. So if there is a boy racer in you, then give it some life and go and buy this Abarth, and you are going to have some fun on the tracks with this car. Not that it's a bad car to drive on a regular basis either, but the fact is that this is a lot more fun once you are on the tracks, and it has got paddle shifts in the sport mode as well. So the transmission might be a bit lazy when you put it on the regular mode, but once you are on the track, the transmission too wakes up when you put it on the sports mode, and it's really a fun car to drive. Well, I'm on a small racetrack, but unfortunately it's raining a bit, so I can't really push it hard. But what I can still feel is that there is a lot of potential in the car to go faster. And had this track been dry, I would have had real good fun. If there is no other reason to buy the Abarth, then at least buy it just for this, to have some fun on the weekends. The space is something which is always at a premium in a small car, but what makes the difference is the clever use of the limited space, and in the case of this Abarth, it has been done rather well. The interior looks both well made as well as sporty, keeping to its Abarth badging, which you will find in plenty inside the car. But the car is not without its idiosyncrasies. The center console is where the gear shift is mounted. Well, not exactly the gear shift, but 3 buttons is all you get to do the job, and of course a sports mode function button. Similarly, the instrumentation is a single pod affair and looks very different from most cars. What I really like about the interiors of this Abarth here is that this is refreshingly different from most of the cars that I have driven in recent times. It's a nice mix of retro and modern. Retro, I say, because you can see the color scheme on it instead of the leather or instead of the wood paneling that normally most cars would have. But modern also because it has all the buttons here which are very ergonomically located, and for gear, you have only this. You press this button here and it shifts into gear, then you have the neutral and the reverse. But also it has an automatic transmission which gives you the option of a sport mode. The instrumentation here is quite funky, it's a single pod, but actually it gives you all the information you might need. And the steering here is small, leather wrapped, flat bottom with multifunction buttons on it. So not only looks nice but quite practical. This is essentially a two-seater, so you're not going to get much space for the backseat passenger because it's a small car. But if you are in the front seat, the seats will hold you quite well even on fast cornering because they are bolstered very well, and of course they have very nice leather with hand stitching on it. So overall I think it looks really nice and funky, and as I said, it's refreshingly different from the regular interiors of the regular cars. The Abarth is strictly a two-seater, and squeezing in people, even the average size ones, will be a bit of a struggle. So if you are single and not exactly keen to mingle, then the Abarth is a car for you. But for the social animals with affinity to carry a lot of people in the car, the Abarth will be disappointing. I think the launch of the Abarth will be a nice addition to our compact segment range of cars, because this is a car which does pretty well everything that a compact car does. But on top of it, she looks really nice and funky, and what I really like about it is the fact that she drives very well. So this should be a fun car for the weekend. But what might go against this is the fact that Fiat is going to bring this into India as a CBU, which means it will be taxed at double the rate. So it is going to be expensive. Fiat will in August of this year launch the Abarth in the Indian market. So if you are looking to buy a cute small car which will turn heads, then do wait for this one. But a word of caution here, make sure that you have a healthy balance in your account, as the car will come in through the CBU route and hence priced quite high. We all take modern cars for granted. The luxury, the performance, the safety, the speed, everything. But little do we wonder how the first car was born. And today it's time for me to show you just that. It all started in the 1880s when a set of engineers, I must say brilliant engineers, who started working on the internal combustion engine. And strangely, they were all based near Stuttgart in Germany. The first one was Otto, who came up with the engine, the internal combustion engine. And this is an engine which is about 2.4 liters in capacity. It is one of the biggest one, made in 1880, which is the first one. And it pumped out all of 1 brake horsepower. The problem with this engine was that it was too big, too heavy, produced too little power, and it had to be attached to a gasoline line. So another individual by the name of Daimler started working on another engine. And this is the result. Nicholas August Otto might have been the first one to crack it and make an internal combustion engine, but because of all these demerits, it became unlikely that it would ever power a motor car. And at the same time, there were 3 other people who were actively working on the idea of moving people without the use of horses. In other words, mechanically through an engine that would power the wheels. And Daimler was one of them. And to improve on what Nicholas Otto did, Daimler made this engine. As you can see, this is one simple engine, a single-cylinder engine, but where it did improve matters is simple. It produced 0.1 bhp more. The output of this engine is 1.1 bhp as compared to the 1 bhp engine that Nicholas Otto made. And this sounds good too. And the engine was light too, and it was called the grandfather clock engine because of the way it looked. But it was time for Mr. Daimler to try out the engine on a frame and to give birth to the first motor car ever made. Time to see the chassis on which he mounted the engine. Daimler was based near Stuttgart, and he was collaborating with Maybach to put the invention onto a frame with wheels and ensure that this engine indeed powers a vehicle. The result was this. And this was the frame where the world's first internal combustion engine, which was light, which was usable, was mounted on this frame, and this was called a motor car. But actually, this is the world's first motorcycle, as you can see. And the advantage of this is that this was very maneuverable, it was easy to ride, and used the engine very effectively, transferring all the power to the wheels. But then it had a downside also. As you can see from the saddle, the rider's backside got a bit too hot. So this was discontinued and further improvements were worked on. This was a design which was worked on by both Daimler as well as Maybach. So it was the first collaborative effort on their part to put an engine on road.
The first drive, or shall we say ride, was only of 3 kilometers and the person literally on the hot seat. And we say hot seat because the engine was mounted right under the seat and it did heat up the seat. Was none other than Daimler's son. The year was 1885 and it wasn't until another year that they would invent another vehicle which looked more like our modern day motor car than a motorcycle.
Maybach and Daimler continued their collaboration and they improved on the two-wheel motor car that they had first made. Incidentally, as I said, the world's first motorcycle. And this was the result, the first four-wheel motor car. And incidentally, they used the same engine which Daimler had made in 1884. But this was a huge improvement. This world's first motor car generated a top speed of 18 kilometers. But the problem with it was the steering. It was difficult to turn the car. So further improvements were called for, and there was another gentleman by the name of Carl Benz who was also working on this in nearby Mannheim.
Daimler might have invented the first vehicle with 4 wheels, but not able to corner with stability was a big problem. The steering angle had to be reworked, and while this was being thought out, another man burst on the scene, Carl Benz from Mannheim, a short distance from Stuttgart.
Actually, there were 4 individuals who were working together at the same time to develop a motor car. Daimler and Maybach made the world's first four-wheeler motor car. Nicholas Otto made the first internal combustion engine, but Carl Benz was not left far behind. He made this. He developed an engine of his own, and he made the chassis, and he made the first motor car, which is a 3-wheeler actually. But the advantage of this is that this is much easier to steer.
History, with its hindsight, will tell us that it will be another 30 years or so before Daimler and Carl Benz would collaborate to bring together some of the best engineered products that will be the benchmark for the industry. But that is for the future and another story. This is how the first motor car looked, a far cry from what we drive today.
This, as you see, is the story of the evolution of a motor car. What I have with me here and what I showed you previously is not a replica. This is the original one, although this is a very close replica, the original one being kept in Munich. But you can see from humble beginnings to where automobiles have really landed up in over 125 years of use and sometimes even abuse.